It's something quite beautiful when you put a plan in place and then you slowly see the plan unravel, come together. And with everything that we try and do in terms of development, we put a plan together. So if you go back 4 years ago or whenever it was that we came to the helm, we had a blueprint that we put together based upon consensus views, not of ours, but of those who were the stakeholders involved in Ghana Rugby. We then took those views and looked at what global rugby expected, world rugby, and then back into Africa rugby. Put together our blueprint, which some people said was not workable, not in Ghana. All of us in Ghana knew that if we're prepared to work hard together, it would be workable. But there were various people that we met in Europe, Rianne and myself, who said it simply was not possible. And I could understand why they'd say that, because they know that governments refuse to support minority sports. And there's a bad history of state support for the development of the youth unless it is football. They know that they themselves, that Africa rugby is hamstrung in terms of getting monies in. And therefore, if you don't have a culture of rugby, which we don't in Ghana, it was unlikely that we'd be able to achieve our lofty aims. Guess what? We have, and we've surpassed it. And this year, Ghana is involved in 4 major tournaments. Rugby being the sport that it is, especially when it's generational, i.e., what are we doing with getting into rugby? Who's going to emerge from that in the new way that we're doing it these days, that in 10 years' time, 8 years' time, they'll be representing Ghana at a certain level. We've really had to draw resources together to try and see where we're going. So this year it's about participation. We fought very hard in establishing the Ladies' League, which we've now had for the last 2+ years, to the point where when it became a choice for Africa Rugby, they gave recognition and respect to the investments that we've made and the way forward. And those who've been involved in that game, we have to turn around, raise our hats to them and say, well done. On the men's side, we've seen massive changes. Look, it's in many ways, people should be happy that there are no real existing players from 4 or 5 years ago who are now part of the Eagle setup. Not because they're not good enough, but because time has moved on. And if you could take from where it is that we developed and went into the Bronze Cup, we've now moved on again. The standard is higher and players have left and others have come in. And yesterday, over the weekend, you saw that the group of players who are training hard because they want to represent Ghana at the Olympics, because they want to represent Ghana at the Nations Cup, because they want to be part of a West Africa Super League, they're all involved. And I say I take my hat off to those who took part and who excelled. Players like young Tereku, who I think if he continues developing, becomes a player, not necessarily for today, but don't forget, what are we all planning for? We're preparing and planning, in my case, to prepare to hand over to somebody else to be president in the near future. But for Ghana, to be preparing for saying, are we actually going to be strong enough for the World Cup in 2023? Do we have any hope, a glimmer of hope? Today, the answer is no. But tomorrow, when we enter into Nations Cup in 2022, are we going to be strong enough to go? And it's the young players like Tereku who will form a part of that. It was great seeing older players come back and get their chance. The Figos and the rest to come back and get their chance. It was fantastic to see people like Michael come in from Cape Coast to play in the second row with such power and verve and quite clearly learning from where we're going. The result is not important. Actually, the result of domestic competitions has never been important to me. It's been about how do we progress, how do we develop? Which of the players actually understand what it is to be a rugby player? The sacrifice that you make, the selflessness with which you have. Nothing is political. It's about your own development as an individual and as a collective with your other players. And so to see players like Michael come along, we've tried to get him for over 2 years now, and for him to finally come and to do what he did, showing the power. The first 10, 15 minutes, they were not very good. But thereafter, to settle in and understand, what are we trying to teach? Because we have a philosophy, which we've had for the last 3.5 years, running the national teams. And we've seen it in the main clubs who follow the same ethos, and we saw it on Saturday developing. A lot of mistakes, a long way to go, but a vast improvement over last year. This team that is being put together is 30-40% better than the team that won the Bronze Cup. And it's still probably 50% not good enough to win the Nations Cup. So we have a long way to go. We're drafting in more and more players, some of the under 20 players to get involved, and one or two players from other regions to get involved. So the domestic national team is getting stronger and stronger. And I say those who learnt, those who played to the patterns and the systems that Coach Dallas has put together, I say congratulations. Well done. It's only a practice match. We'll do another one this week. Hopefully we'll get more players who played in a previous era, players who didn't know there was the opportunity to play. And it's a very fluid situation because we start the West Africa Super Cup, which Ghana owns. It is a Ghana-led competition. And for everybody in Ghana, they need to be proud of that fact. And we will enter it, we'll win some, we'll lose some, we will do well in some, we might not play as well as we should in others. But the most important thing is that we will learn. We will learn. So that come 2022, we would have played in 1 or 2 Nations Cups. We will know what to expect. Those who are there for the long haul will see that putting in the effort that they put in will be rewarded. So that when we look back and we say, wow, it started from where? It started from 2 years ago. And we've progressed. Those who were involved in 1D and played well and everything that was involved in that, all the way through to where we are today. It's absolutely massive. And all I can say is that was fantastic. So we've got a few more weeks to come. It's going to be very hectic. We've got a big squad of players who are involved in our development process. And we can only say that I hope that they all come to a fore, see that there is opportunity for everybody. We can't play with the 25 players. We have to play with up to 40 players. Everybody being given the chance. So that by the time we start choosing the squad that is ready for the Nations Cup in October, November, Botswana is the first match. We will then see those who have trained, those who have participated, those who have learned, which combinations work best, and then we can go there and give it our all. Don't forget, we have the Olympic qualification before that. So it's a very tight schedule. Forget about raising the money. You can imagine that's a nightmare. But before that, the planning, the commitment, the involvement will be absolutely massive.